Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Anthony Wheeler. Let's jump into it.
All right. Today, we're talking about style, okay? And I'm going to throw this out there. I want you guys to tell me if this is true or false. You don't find your art style, it finds you.
True or false?
True
or false?
It finds you. Elaborate on that, on the differences between those two before I agree or disagree.
I'll tell you why I bring this up is because we got a question in our 24/7 section on the studio where our studio members can just throw out a question any time of the day and we respond mostly within 24 hours unless something's going on and we miss it or something. But I will say we've been pretty good about it. And Alice was asking about her trying to find her style and wondering if it's okay to shift styles or mess with different kinds of mediums to find the style and whatnot. And she says, she was saying after doing some style studies, I feel like I could go in so many directions. It's making me question whether I should choose a clear path instead of just letting my style emerge. Maybe it's just me overthinking, trying to be efficient and build a cohesive portfolio fast. So one of the things that I got from what she was saying, she's sitting here, she's got great ability as an illustrator if you look at her portfolio. And she definitely has a way with different mediums, depending on what she's doing. She knows how to render really well. Her rendering assignment was incredible. And the rendering assignment, by the way, it's from Will Terry's class on rendering. And it's where you take like 20 different cubes and you do them in different, like do a cube with water, do a cube as lava, do a cube as like crusted earth, do a cube as a tree bark or something like that. She just knocked that one out of the park. So she's like, oh, how do I find style? And what I realized, there's this confusion, I think, among younger artists or newer to art people that style is the medium that you use. Style is, I'm using ink instead of watercolor. I'm using oils instead of digital or something like that. And the point that I made to her was style is so much deeper than what medium you're using. Style is, I think, transcends medium. And the example I brought up was Mike Mignola. So he's one of my favorite comic artists. He's got incredible, like definitive, or I wouldn't say definitive, a defined, completely recognizable style. So much so that if people even like tiptoe right into the edges of what he's doing, people are like, oh, you're copying Mignola, right?
Yep.
So look him up. He's the guy who did Hellboy, if you're not familiar with him. But over the years, his typical thing is black and white, like black ink on white paper, very thin, unexpressive line work, deep, dark shadows is how he's applying the ink. And that's the 90% of the work he does is ink on paper, and then it'll be colored digitally for the comics and whatnot. But every once in a while, he'll do a pencil sketch, or he'll do a watercolor, or he'll do like a mix, a pencil with watercolor. And what's interesting is when he takes out the line and he's using watercolor, it still looks like he did it unmistakably. His style is still there. And what I realized is that what some people don't understand is that style isn't the mark making that you're doing necessarily. It's the tone and vibe of what you're doing. It's the shape language of what you're doing, because shape language transcends medium. It's compositions, because compositions also transcend the media that you're doing. It's proportions. All of those things I think are what style is. And you don't find your style. I think if you're more skilled, you can deliberately find it. But I think for most people, they come to their style almost unintentionally as a byproduct of just drawing over and over and over, almost like it becomes your shortcut, like your signature. When you were taught how to write, teachers like, here's how you do a J, here's how you do an A, here's a C, for Jacob or whatever. And you could see over the course of 20 years, my signature going from essentially blocky letters to the scribble with really unique line work to it, right? Or shapes to it. And that's just because it was on my shortcuts to try to get that signature done fast. And sometimes I was deliberately trying to make my signature look a certain way. And other times it was just, I was in a hurry and this is how I did it. I was like, ooh, I like that. I'm going to keep that. You expand that to your artwork, and that's how you come about style. So that's what I think.
Wrong.
Oh, thank goodness. Now this is the part where we argue. All right, Lee, take it away.
For me, it has been a very deliberate and intentional trip, even though I do agree with you that there's a certain innate thing that's within you, and you always will gravitate towards. I mean, I can see some of my work that I do now, even in the early student work where I didn't know anything about style or anything. It was just there. But here, I'm gonna share my screen. I think that a combination of things, making images like you're talking about, will get you there, because you're always, while you're making an image, you're constantly looking and evaluating and changing and whatnot. Oh wait, I gotta pop this window out. But I also think there's, at least for me, I do specific tests where I say, what if I do this thing? What if I don't do this thing? What if I just switch it up totally intentionally just to see what the result is going to be. And I do a lot of this stuff in my sketchbook. And then I have two other things that I'll talk about once I share my screen. This is just one little page of it, but in this page, I'm trying to, is it showing up pixelated for you guys?
No, looks
just fine.
Looks good to me.
I don't know why on my screen it's looking pixelated. Anyway, this is a page where I'm basically saying, okay, if I'm sitting in front of a giant cathedral and it's got all these parts, I can paint it in watercolor. And that's some of the stuff that I've been doing on my bigger studies that take a long time. Then I was like, how do I want to interpret something that's really complicated and big in a quick, if I have 15 minutes, how would I interpret that? And so this is just an example of how I might approach it. But I first write out what the thing I'm going to do is. So in that upper left one, the thing that I tried to do was just painted silhouette of a sky. So you outline, that gives you your overall silhouette of the buildings, right? And then draw on the interior. So that's my first one. And I write it out, sky silhouette with drawn details. And then number two on the right there, that teal kind of roof one, I make a couple of big shapes within the bigger shape, within the overall structure, and then draw the rest of the details. So that's number two. Number three down here on the left is I just paint the silhouette of the actual shape of the building, not the negative shape, but the positive shape, and then draw the details in there. The third one is just singular color and just do mass and detail together. That's this kind of marker study down here. And then the one at the upper right is leaving the light side of an object alone, shading the shadow side with one mid-tone color marker or watercolor, whatever you want, and then adding black, like Mike Mignola might do. So, I write these things down, not only do the test, but then I give them a little label. And this is just one page. I've got hundreds of these. And then I start to say, well, which one do I like? Or, sometimes subject matter will want to be one of them and not the other one. But it's very intentional. I mean, I'm literally saying, I'm looking at the subject matter and just repeating the same subject matter. And I do this a bunch where I'll take the same subject matter, try a graphic approach. I'll try a more rendered approach, try whatever you want to do. And then you start to make your decisions. And I view it almost as like, I just got through eating my lunch sandwich. You go to a sandwich shop and you pull out the little form and you got, okay, which kind of bread do you want? Do you want this? Check off the Italian bread. And which kind of cheese? I'm going to go with Swiss. And that's how I see being able to control style. But it is only through doing these sort of intentional tests. And I know everybody's not going to do that, but that's how I do it, because It's the only way that I know how to do it. Cause I don't know. I think if you're just looking at something and trying to draw it, it's natural to just draw what you see. But this is a filter in a way of seeing, but you have to sort of be conscious about it.
So my question to you, and I'm leading the witness a little bit, is how do you know how to adjust those filters? Because and for the folks that aren't watching on YouTube right now, the images that Lee showed really shows sort of a range of different styles and attitudes and approaches, right? How do you know how to filter those? And how did you bring those back into your skill set?
Well, like I said, some subject matter is going to lean one way over the other.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, right when I look at something, I can say, oh, that would be good done in this way or that way. But sometimes you just randomly pick it, like, hey, I got 15 minutes. I'm just going to pick this one and I'm going to go with it. So sometimes if I go, and that's one of some advice that I have for students when they go to, like, say, a figure drawing class. Figure drawing is the worst when the model takes a pose and you're just basically like, I have no idea what the finished product is going to look like. If I do it perfectly, I want to know what it's going to look like before I'm even at the figure drawing session. So I bring samples. Like, in a perfect world, if I can nail this, it's going to look like this. That gives me a roadmap to approach the session.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll do that with illustration, where I know I'm going to use a certain look, and then I'm the whole time I'm building the illustration, I'm thinking about it. But I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I think out of the group, like when I get a grouping of that, I'll test 10 different sort of looks, and then one of them will feel more right to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so
I think that's kind of that constellation of experience that you have that just sort of puts all that together. I
still limit it. And so, like, let me put up the, so I'll do all those as sort of, like I said, the order form. And then I will start to, test those theories. So at first it's a hypothesis, right? Will this work? Will this look good? Will it not look good? And then I start going through and I test it. Let me put this other sketchbook over here.
Knocking the chair into the microphone. Somebody in their car just now thinks that there's a meteor crashing to the earth.
You can never know.
Oh, you can.
Okay, so
when you're done with that, I want to read a comment from Mabel, because we're recording this episode live, and there are folks that are subscribed over at SVSLEARN here with us, and so yeah, go forth.
Okay, so this is the one. So I do these sketches every day, and so I'm combining two of them. Like, what if I do a color field, basically the local color of whatever. This is like a little kiosk thing. So I'm looking at a photo of this, but there's a complicated city in the background. So then I start saying, okay, what out of that order form, out of those 8 different ways to interpret things, I'm going to try to start to blend them together and see which one ends up being the thing that I gravitate towards. So again, first step is, here's my options. I'm not even really leaning towards it. I might even render one completely, like, photorealistically in the sketchbook, just so I have that as one of my options, to check on how to interpret subject matter. But then you start testing that hypothesis in which one's going to be yours. So once I have my order form, so to speak, I then start looking at reference and seeing which one becomes the most economical, that has the best look and whatever. And I just do these for like 15 minutes a day. I'll do some little drawing, but how to handle that complicated background, with a simple sort of abbreviated line, fill in a flat color wash, and then draw the details. And so that was my hypothesis. I knew that's how I was going to handle it. And then I just picked a reference image and ran it through.
I want to say though, Lee, like, even when I looked at the domes that you were sharing, the Italian domes or whatever that was from, I forget what country were those? Whatever. I'm just trying to describe them, but
I think that was Italy, but
like Sicily or something. The proportions were all the same. The framing or the POV was all the same, and I think that is more your style than the watercolor that you're using. So when I see you render in pencil, or I see you rendering digitally or whatever, your style shows through, even though you're changing mediums, even though you're
well, that, I mean, that's what, and that's the last component of that is, and we talked about that the other day, is that you can't escape yourself if you wanted to. Oh, that was me and David. We were at the office hours, but
oh, okay.
you know, you can do whatever style test you want to do. You can do whatever media test you want to do, or subject matter test. You're still a component of it, and you can't outrun that. You're always going to be, for better or for worse, sometimes.
Right. So what I'm saying is lean into that part of you, because there was I was reading a quote this weekend from I forget what her name is. Last name was Lindbergh. She may have been Charles Lindbergh's daughter, but she said it is exhausting to be inauthentic, and the easiest thing to do in life is to be yourself, right? And so I think that goes right along with style as well. It's like anytime that you're trying to force it, anytime that you're trying to like, fit it into a shape, it's more work, and it's harder to do, and it's harder to stay consistent like that. So
what happens when Lee's authenticity just exhausts me? That's different. Okay, never mind.
That's different.
But I will say that there's going to be a tug in different directions, and that's the hard part about being an artist. And so I've got this little bit more graphic and flatter, almost graphic design style that I'm playing with in Sketchbook. That's what you just saw in the Sketchbook. But then the paintings that I'm doing right now are still lean a little bit more towards, I won't say realism. Nobody would think it's a photo, but there's realistic sort of shadows falling and stuff like that. And I feel that tug of which way do I want to go? Do I want to go more graphic? Do I want to keep doing what I'm doing, or is there a hybrid version of it? But then that's where the testing comes in. But I don't think I've some people that I went to school with, and I graduated in 2003. I hate to say that. It kind of dates me a little bit, but man, they've been the same. They were the same in school, and the work they're doing now looks exactly the same as when they graduated. And I guess they're happy with it. I'm just not that person. So I'm always on the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just my nature. And it's just their nature. I don't know which one's better. I'm jealous of them a little bit because
but are those people are using the exact same tools they used in college, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just can't believe it.
Yeah. But I think if you were using the exact same tools you were in college, it would still look like Lee White did it. So I think we're still confusing medium with style. Like you can, it's just a skin over the top of it.
Here it goes. Here he goes. He's going, okay, for the folks that are listening in their cars, so he's gotten off of his chair. He's walked past a giant
room.
He's stomping. He moved a yardstick to find, I think, some trash.
Yeah. Is that a gun? Lee's got a gun. Just kidding.
I hate you people. Hold on.
If only you could defend yourself while we do these bits.
Let me go back to the screen. I'm so glad I have this whole thing. So this I spent the last month or two building this setup in the studio where I can film and demo really easily. And now just by
it's so
chance,
killer.
Yeah, and thank gosh you have a friend named Anthony who showed you how to do it.
Wait, have you seen it in
never
person,
gets any
Anthony?
credit? No, I don't want to go to his house.
Okay, because
so same media on these two.
Yeah,
but totally different application of this one's going to be drawn and more flat and more graphic, and then this one's sort of, again, not realistic, but sort of more realistic than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so the same, but it's the same media, but it's still me. Yeah. So. But you're saying that it's independent of the media. It's sort of in you. But wouldn't you say that those two images are totally different?
I would say I could still tell that the same guy did both, because the way you do a half circle is like for the top of that archway of the doorway, it's the same sort of shape as the top of your other. The proportions are the same. Like your proportions, your shape language, your compositions don't vary, even though your medium varies. And I think that's more akin to style. Like if I were to give you, let's say we did the Sam Cotterill approach, and I gave you pieces of paper and glue, and paint and you were to do this all in 3D, man, it would still look like a Lee White creation. Or if you were sculpting in clay.
So you're saying if this one on the right that I finished yesterday, just a little study for a bigger piece, you'd still see that as me, and then you'd see this also as me, even though everything about it's different.
Yeah.
You're stupid. I don't know. The thing that I end up with here as I have this image on screen is it just kind of sort of highlights my approach to it, which is constant experimentation.
Yeah.
Now maybe Jake's right. Maybe, like I said earlier, you're a component of it. Maybe you can't. Maybe that really is the biggest driver of how your images look, no matter what you do.
I will say the stuff that you did that really shocked me is like that is really something different. Was when you were experimenting with very abstract, kind of, I think it was digital stuff, that like that Batman that you did.
Oh, well, I was doing those traditionally too, not the Batman, but I did like 4 or 5 of those. Yeah. Where it's really, really textural oil and acrylic, like thick paint.
Like that stuff, for whatever reason, that was like getting you outside of your head more than normal. And I was like, okay, this is. So if you think about it, it'd be like, I'm trying to think of an artist that genuinely does have 2 different styles. It would be almost like, so let's take Bob Stack, right? Like he does the shapes and everything, and and everything is like a square, a triangle, or a circle at different sizes.
Yeah.
It would be like if he all of a sudden was doing very much rendered life drawing type of classical type of stuff, right? Even though if he drew a bird in the Bob Stack style, you would spot it a mile away, whether he was drawing it with pencil or with the computer or anything, versus if he was drawing it like lifelike and rendering it with light and shadow and everything. Like that's 2 different styles, right? Because he's changing it fundamentally at its core, the shapes that he's using, the light and shadow, all those types of things. So I can't think of an artist who is like really actively using 2 styles, because again, it's like, why would you do that when one's really working for you? And unless you're just for the sake of exploration and getting bored.
Well, and at a certain point, you become known for something too. And so some people, I have to think, they get locked into a thing that they are fine to do, but they're not. It's like not exactly what they want to do. It's almost like the analogy there is like Bob Ross, who was on television for 40 years, didn't have a curly afro naturally. That was just something that sort of happened in the 70s, and then that became synonymous with who he was. And then for the rest of his life, he had to have a curly afro and put that sort of on every day for every show. And he was just kind of stuck with it at that point. There's a couple of things that come to mind here. So I want to read Mabel's comment. Mabel says, I think you can develop a style when you study other artists and see how they draw feet, how they draw trees, how they render, and how they copy. You develop a style from those methods that work for you. So over the last handful of years, I've really thought sort of deeply about this, because I've always kind of wondered, like, I think we can complicate this question sometimes too. And so I was thinking a lot about like where my style came from. Did I trip into this, or did I really consciously find mine? And I go back to a thing. I did a workshop with Jake years ago. My gosh, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And one of the things that Jake said as like one of his parting wisdoms from that thing was, all of you can do this, but now you need to go home and you need to consciously practice. Don't just sit mindlessly in front of the television and just kind of doodle one thing and then doodle another thing. Sit down 30 minutes, consciously practice. And that sat with me, I mean, obviously, until today, right? So the way that I look at this conversation with style, I think about North Stars, and I think about the people who greatly influence us. And so if I go back to when I was really getting started out and really changing my illustration technique from wanted to be sort of like an old school comic book illustrator to more kid-lit shape based and stuff like that, I basically chose 5 people to look at. And I actually have my list here. So Bill Watterson, and I'll tell you why for each one of these. Jake, unfortunately, Jake is on this list. Dave Girton, over from Creature Box.
Lee White.
So sorry, you're not. I'll figure out where you're at on the list, and we'll talk about it later. Our buddy Rob Mamartz, who we interviewed on the podcast, and then comic book illustrator Mike Waringo. And my thought at the time, and I talk about this all the time now, is basically if you're making a creative soup, I'm going to go into the Jake style analogy, but basically you have a creative style soup. And you're going to take one ingredient from each one of these incredible illustrators, and you're going to put that into your soup. So for me, for Bill Watterson, beyond heart, it was brushwork. For Jake, it was being able to see things and render things in 3-dimensionality, being able to take anything and rotate it and twist it and see how it works on the inside, how it works to the outside, how it connects to other stuff. Dave Girton, for me, was all about being bold and then bringing shape into his work. Rob Mamartz, just line work. Like, he's got the best lines and shapes of anybody. And then Mike Waringo, who sadly passed away in his 40s due to a heart attack. His work for me was about fluidity. It just, everything just smooth and graceful. And it was utterly gorgeous. And so if you put all of this stuff into your soup, and you can start to taste these ingredients as you're sort of testing it and stuff like that. And us as illustrators, for me, like I was working on my brushwork, I was working on my 3D work, I was working on all my shape stuff. But over time, the more and more you mix your cauldron of soup, those flavors all start to blend in with each other. And then you don't necessarily even remember what all of those ingredients were, because it all kind of forms into this new thing, this new flavor, this new taste. And that's kind of what it's been like for me with these influences. And then over the years, I can then find 5 new North Stars, and I can incorporate their work, one aspect of their work, into what I do. And if you do it for long enough, then those influences, you don't see those influences anymore. They're there, but it all starts to form into this new thing. And then you get to own that. And that's kind of how I think it can both find you, but I think it's got to be a conscious thing that you go try to find it as well. But I think there's also savants out there too. And I think Lee would classify himself as a savant, sort of a self-dedicated savant, where he just knows how to make stuff. You know?
Yeah, I think for I wish I was. That makes it seem like it's natural, and Sam and I have been having all these conversations lately about simplifying. I know that like, say for example, I think she would say that the books that she's done are in her style, right? Obviously she did them already, but she told me that she was close to, probably 6 months ago, bailing. She's like, maybe I'm not into this anymore. Maybe I don't like it anymore. Again, that's something you really pay attention to. So she started kind of having to balance out what her natural tendency is versus what she thought the work should look like that she makes. And those two were not congruent. They were not meshing well because it was taking too long. By the time she would build the sets, she'd lost the energy for it. You know what I mean? And so she realized that she needed something that's faster paced, faster hits. And so she stumbled upon, just by saying, I don't want to do that anymore, just because of the time. Even though I think she ultimately liked the images that she was making, there was a disconnect happening there. And so, fast forward 6 months, and the conversations we're having now is she's making these sort of super simplified sets. And then she's drawing on top of them as the most immediate way to make these marks. And I'm just going to guess at these hours, but say it used to take 2 days to build a small set. Now it takes her 2 hours to make the full illustration. And they're radically different, but they're super fresh. And it wasn't necessarily that she was hunting for style, but she was hunting for a match to how she wanted to make work, how she wants to feel while she's making work. And it had to be quicker and it had to be more immediate. And so the style evolved from that necessity, right?
I want to point out too, like, just a real practical, rubber to the road way to go about this. Sort of like an idiot's guide to finding your style. It's this one thing. Okay. Go do 1,000 drawings. Make 1,000 pieces.
Today. today.
No, just yes, today, or do one a day for the next 1,000 days, and you will see something really emerge on the other end of that. You'll see it probably after 300, but by 1,000, you're really gonna like have it locked in. And Lee and I were just looking at this painter. Remember that painter you were showing me on Instagram?
Yeah. Yep.
What was her name again?
I'd have to pull her up. I sent you the link, so it's in our chat.
But tell them about her.
Okay, so we were looking it was funny because it was a very organic way that this one came about. That Jake and I were talking, and of course, while we're talking, I'm looking at different stuff on Instagram and Pinterest or whatever. And this girl came up, and I said, "Wow, man, this girl has really branded herself." Here, I'll share my screen and show it. She's really branded herself, because when I see it, I'm a little bit jealous, because she has not only the theme, not only the brush marks, she's got the palette, and she's got the graphic design. And what makes me jealous about it is there's no question about what she's going to paint. They're different enough where it's not the same painting, but they're consistent enough where it's the same painting. She's painting the same painting over and over again, essentially. But she figured out
she'll do like just there. Let's do two women walking together. We'll have two women walking. We'll have two women by the side of the pool. Now let's switch to sailboats. Now let's switch to the beach.
But they're all stand-ins for each other. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter which one she's painting. They're all very graphic. They're all very hard-edged. They're all very mostly cool with a little bit of warm. I mean, it's almost the same painting, whether it's a sailboat or a group of sort of surfers in a row. And it just made me jealous, because she's really found her gig. And so Jake and I are just oohing and ahhing. And as we oohed and ahed, it's funny because I was scrolling, and we were sort of marveling at this. And we found a couple of dates where her work literally transformed from what it was here. I'm gonna scroll really fast to the bottom, because
if you go to her early work, you're like, wait, this is a different artist. This is not
right. Wildly different. I mean, let's see. Okay, so here you can see, so we're scrolling for those of you guys who are just listening. There's still elements of rendering. The brushwork is a little more sloppy and I guess muddled. And then she's also trying to render, where that leaves later. Like the current work she's doing now is so graphic. I mean, it's almost graphic design, not necessarily painting. She's doing this like kind of patchy brushwork, not even close to the same skill level. And it just changed almost overnight. And then as we scrolled even farther back, I mean, look at this painting compared to what she's doing now. Like it's just total amateur hour. That was that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And, it's just shot. I mean, it was unexpected as we were kind of scrolling through it. Is like, whoa,
like click on one of those right there.
Okay, here's the big difference. Yeah. Like, I mean, totally. She was painting in watercolor. She switches to oil or acrylic using the palette knife. It's just kind of really fun. As we scrolled through this, we saw the evolution of an artist right before our eyes, from somebody who's pretty good to somebody who is an absolute pro.
Right. Do you think that, I mean, there's so much, right? And it's like, it's impossible to know what would be the transformative thing for this person. But do you think that for the audience at home, do you think that's a time under tension? Do you think that is consciously practicing? Do you think that is just filling up your Pinterest with as many reference images as you can? Do you think at some point it's just making a decision and sticking with it? Like, what would you consult with somebody?
Here's one of them where everything changed. So if you look at this page right here that's up, we've got this weird little close-up texture thing that's happening. We've got this hyper rendered, again, not bad, but definitely not, I don't know, there's an awkwardness to it of this portrait. And then all of a sudden she does this one. And this was January 27th, 2024, about a year past some of those previous ones that I showed. It was really muddled. And this one is the hit where this is just my hunch, but when she hit on this one, it was like all graphic shapes, super, super, stylized and simplified, and then it's really thick paint. And so that's sort of the hallmark. And I think after this moment on that day, she then tries it here, didn't really hit it because the shapes aren't clear enough. And so then she starts cleaning up the shapes. Then she, a week later hits this one, super clear shapes. And then from that point on, and this was the big jump right there where she added human subject matter to it, really simplified and blocked out the shape, made using no curves at all, just all straights. And from that point on, it's all good. So I think that painting changed her. That's my hunch.
And it makes you wonder, like, okay, did she go to a workshop one weekend and came away from it like, met with the professional, and they're like, you know what would really you should do is quit trying to render and just focus on shape. It's one of those types of changes that I can't think that it happened that quick on its own. I think there was some sort of external intervention.
Yeah. So Jake was saying, like, maybe did she pull up an AI image that looked like that, and then she's like, "Oh, I get it." What was it?
Or just finds like some sort of reference or some sort of North Star, or just something that makes that, or maybe it has a moment in her life that does that.
Yeah.
And I think
before I lose the point, let me make this point, because what Jake was just saying, you do 1,000 paintings. I mean, that's one of the things I did when I was in school, as I said, I'm not going to judge my paintings until I do 100. So I cleaned up 1,000. But that evolution that we just showed you guys was less than 2 years of, I mean, you saw how much work she made, all traditional, and she was cranking, but 2 years and she found it. So it really is sitting your butt down at the table and making stuff.
Yeah. The art store had a buy two, get 3 free on ultramarine oil paint. She's like, I guess I'm doing beach scenes.
It's all beach.
How frustrated do you guys get as instructors when somebody's so early into their journey and they're like, I just can't find my style? Like and frustrated is the wrong term, but like, how do you encounter that as instructors?
Well, I think illustration and painting is set up differently. We've talked a little bit about this on the podcast before, but the focus of finding your own thing is on you from the second you pick up a pencil or a brush. I mean, it's weird that if you pick up a guitar, nobody wants you to have your own style. It's just goofy. It's so goofy.
Right. I do remember very vividly being a 18-year-old kid just out of high school in my first life drawing class at the community college, and just sitting there working on it. And I asked the teacher, I'm just like, how do I find my style? And the teacher just chuckled, and he's like, start worrying about that when you're 28, Jake. Yeah. He's like, right now, just learn how to life draw. And he was right.
I don't like that answer either, though, because it's almost disingenuous or something like that, because there's so much focus on it.
I didn't feel upset or anything. I was like, no, he's got a point. I really do need to figure out how to do the fundamentals first.
Well, but there's that.
It's like you learn your scales before you learn the jazz scales. You learn.
Yeah, but what if he said, learn how to draw? You obviously need to know that stuff, but you also, like Anthony used that metaphor of the soup. I have the same sort of metaphor, but gathering flowers, like in going through the woods and gathering flowers and sticks and things that you like, leaves. And by the time you get to the end of that journey, everybody's sort of bouquet of what they have is going to be different. That's how I sort of view style. And if he would have sent you down there, it's like, okay, find 3 artists that you can't find any better than these 3. They're your top 3. And, start doing that research, and then you got your 3 artists. The next week you come back and you say, okay, what's consistent about those artists? What's inconsistent about those artists? Why are you drawn to those artists? You start doing that mental work, because that is the tug of why, I really like ink. You bring in 3 ink artists and you say, okay, well, I should probably do something with ink because these 3 have that. And it doesn't mean you can't work on your base set of skills at the same time.
Yeah. I agree. I want to say too, like there's this, Kristen says in the chat, style chasing is a little harder to make it look unique too, and not let your influences creep in too much. And I want to say, if you absolutely love a certain artist, just own it. Just own it. Like, I could see Bill Watterson, even to this day, in the stuff that I draw. And every time anybody asks me who my influences are, I'm like, Bill Watterson, Bill Watterson. There's another artist, Bruce Timm, who came up with the style for Batman the Animated Series, which is very unique, cool style, right? And anytime you see his like personal work, when he's not trying to do like animated stuff, but he's trying to do more rendered type of more detailed stuff, it looks like there's a Jack Kirby filter on it, right? A little bit to a degree, but there's still that uniquely Bruce Timmness to it.
Yep.
And that is actually endearing to me, because it endears me to him a little more, because I could see what essentially he was raised on and how he's riffing on that and making it his own. And I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't think you got to bail totally. I pulled up an artist, we all know and love John Klassen, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is John Klassen light. I bet you if we interviewed him there, he would say, yep, I looked at John Klassen and that was sort of my North Star. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to even call him the poor man's John Klassen. I think he's as good as John Klassen, but he is definitely John Klassen,
right?
Klassen-esque. And he like you said, he owned it, he nailed it, and he's doing pro work. Now, I know what the comments are going to come back, so let me head that off at the pass. Is Lee saying that you should just steal somebody's work and just call it your own? The answer is yes. You should. No.
Especially if it's Lee's, but leave mine alone, please. I need some time with it.
I mean, the thing about this one is it's so close, and then yet it's still so good. And so I don't know. I'm right on the fence about whether this is okay or not.
Just to be clear, style isn't copyrightable. Like,
true.
You can't trademark or copyright or own a style. You can in a way, in like a intangible way, where it's like if you do something that looks like Mike Mignola did it, people are going to call you out on that. But I think it's totally fine to go through a phase where your stuff looks so much like your influences that it's embarrassing. But then what happens is you can't rely on them for forever. There's going to be a point in time where you have to do an illustration that they hadn't done before. Right. There's going to be like a pose that you've never seen them do before, and you're going to have to like figure it out on your own. And that's when you start creeping in, your style starts creeping in and taking over, and it does become more yours than it is theirs.
Yeah.
And
you're not wrong.
I think it's good.
I've said for a long time, because I will talk about this topic all the time, and as much as I love Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes, and that is my absolute number one North Star, I don't look at it very much anymore. And that's because I don't want to draw those comparisons, and I don't want so much of that to be in my work on a daily basis. The aura is there, the constellation is there, the flavor is there, but I want to be my own dude. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. And so, I don't know. Yeah, at some point you kind of have to turn off that faucet.
I think your interest changed too, and then you start looking at other things, and natural. Again, you can't avoid yourself, so there's that part of it as well. But I mean, the people I was looking at in college are not the people I look at now, obviously, and
same.
It changes.
Yeah. Are you still? Can I ask you guys? Are you still consciously looking at people in terms of their style and studying it and things like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm on a big kick of the M. Sasek. He's just so good at simplifying and I would like to go a little more graphic in my work, and he's definitely the North Star there.
Yeah. We have a great question from Mabel, but it's a complete shifting of gears. But I want to at least tackle it for like 10 minutes, and then we should probably end the podcast because we have a SVS meeting we got to run to. So how's that sound to you guys?
Let's do it.
Sounds great.
Okay. So what Mabel says is, I'm just going to spotlight it here so we can see it. If you're self-publishing, What methods do you recommend to get yourself out there to gain readers? Posting on social media feels very much like a waste of time these days. Or should someone pursue traditionally published work to first build a name for themselves and then branch out on their own? So
that's a hard one. I get the second part of that one's easy, and that is do not wait to be traditionally published before you self-publish. That road is just as long and as hard, and could take years.
Yeah.
So don't delay.
Yeah.
Do not delay. I want to hear Anthony, because you really did come from complete obscurity to having a pretty significant following and a fan base now.
Yeah. And I think, I think social media has obviously changed, but it needs to. And I think every part of both publishing, creativity, the tools, everything changes every 2 to 3, 4 years. Yeah. You just have to get comfortable with the idea that that's going to happen. And either you go along with it or you don't. I also recognize in this new sort of epoch of everything, like not all illustrators, artists, painters want to do and play the games, but guess what? Sometimes you kind of have to do it. I have actually turned a lot of my social media, not off, but like I have not paid attention to a lot of it in the last 6 months because I personally just needed a break. I just wasn't interested. I didn't want to do it, but I still maintained my daily live streams. I still maintained these podcasts. I still gave enough so I could have that creativity and that flexibility. My big thing though is the internet has, and how do I word this? There's a lot of the same stuff out there. People kind of feel like if they make a post on Instagram, they're deserved 100 likes or 1,000 likes. Well, guess what? No one cares. No one cares. But as we get into this next era of everything, technology is taking over. There's AI left and right, all of this sort of stuff. You know what people are yearning for? Community, conversation, stories that they can grasp onto. I think story will always remain the thing that we as humans will be able to like really gravitate towards. I constantly will watch TikTok videos or Instagram videos if people are telling me a story and they're telling me a story about their lives, if I'm getting to know them, if I'm getting to know the backstory on why a thing exists, if I'm seeing sort of like part of that thing getting made, but I'm knowing why they're making it. I think that's why live streams are so popular today, is because people are like just desperate for connection. That's why anytime there's a change made on a podcast like this, there's always inevitably somebody in the comments who just doesn't like it because they're connected to something. So my best advice to somebody who is in this phase, do not wait, publish yourself, keep your expectations low. But if you're not out there every single day telling your story, showing up every single day telling your story, you're not going to even give anybody a chance to care. No one's going to care because you're not putting in that kind of effort and you're not building that back. The other thing I will say is like how often on social media, and this is not directed at Mabel at all, are you engaging with people? Are you responding to people? Are you building those conversations? Aaron Richardson is here in the chat today. And I think one of the things that Aaron is spectacular at is finding community and conversation and responding to things. So like when I was posting on Threads and enjoying my time over there, Aaron would chime in and then I would chime in with Aaron and then I would go back and look at her portfolio and then I would see her over here at these events. Be like, that's my buddy Aaron and I'm dialed in and now I want to support Aaron and all of her endeavors. But that's somebody who's plugged in, who's working it and trying to make it all work. So
yeah. I think you got to figure out what your strengths are as a person outside of just the drawing, right? Yeah. And if your strength is I'm very good at speaking, then find a platform where you can speak. If you're very good at writing, then find a platform where that is valued, like Substack or Medium or something like that, or an email list. If you're very good at like humor and being funny and really short, quick stuff, you'll probably do great on TikTok or Instagram or something like that. So you don't have to be on every platform. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. Find the thing that you're good at just lean into it and just know that this is a part of the job. And I always come back to this question, who's going to be more successful? An okay artist who's an absolutely phenomenally consistent YouTuber, or an inconsistent okay YouTuber and an absolutely phenomenal artist, right?
Yeah, true.
So, unless that artist gets a publisher really behind them, and I've seen a ton of artists who have gotten published and no support from a publisher and their book tanks, unless they have that marketing engine behind the thing that they're doing, the publishing route isn't going to bring them fame and fortune. So that's just the way I've been sort of looking at it. And this, Anthony, for years I've been like, I don't want to be a YouTuber. I don't want to look back on my life and see 100 YouTube videos instead of the graphic novel I could have drawn or whatever. Yeah. But I've really realized that like the landscape has changed, and out of all the platforms to be on, that's the one that honestly like enriches me the most. I love like sharing my thoughts on there. The feedback, the comments are not just like, haha, great. The comments are like, oh, that reminded me, Jake, this is how it was when I was growing up, and blah, blah, blah. Like people actually write things, and you can make a strong connection, because that's where I'm strong on. If I was as good as Anthony was on live streams, I would do way more live streams. But Anthony's like really good, quick. He gets energy from it.
Keep going.
He does awesome in Twitch. He's just so handsome.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just one more, please.
Well, let me add one more thing about Anthony too.
All right,
not just Anthony. If you are interested in more of this kind of stuff, Anthony and I are going to be running a week-long workshop in Spain, and this is the topic. I've got some specific exercises that I'm making a whole workbook for the people that go to study with me and Anthony, and it has these really specific exercises to try to not only identify your style, your tendencies. I'm going to push you in ways that you're probably never been pushed in terms of sketching and drawing. And not only that, but seeing. That's the whole sort of backbone of the workshop is trying to see things differently, because once you start to see and think differently, then you've got the option of drawing and painting differently. But it does come from some conscious choices. And Anthony's going to be there helping me out. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat here. You guys are the first group outside of my watercolor group to see this. We haven't launched it formally yet because we're waiting for Jake's Graphic Novel Pro to wrap up. But the people that are hearing this, that's check the link. It's in the notes.
Yeah, it's definitely running. You can order that now by the time this episode drops. So
yep.
So that's good.
Yeah. Do you ever the last thing on that is a watered garden grows. My garden right now is not growing because there's no water on it. And guess what? There's a lot of weeds out there. But if you water your garden, if you plant your seeds, you fertilize, you let a lot of sunlight come through, that garden just grows. It takes off. And then it's at a certain point, it really takes off. And you don't really have to do a whole lot with it anymore. I think projects, I think self-publishing, I think social media, I think everything in our lives, in our creative lives, is momentum based. And I think if you show up on a regular basis, only good things can happen. It might not be exactly what you think is going to happen, but only good things can happen.
I mean, I'll take your gardening analogy and raise it with the well. So you got to dig the well before you get thirsty, right? So a lot of times people are like, okay, I'm ready to launch my Kickstarter. And they've been silent on social media for 6 months. And they're like, hey, everybody, like, come check out my Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's the best.
And like people are like, wait, who's this? What it doesn't go, like the algorithm doesn't know what to do with it, all that stuff. So, but just stay consistent, find the thing that you're strong at and do that. And
so we're saying dig the well, water the garden, make the soup, gather the flowers.
That's right.
Lee, do you have any other analogies you want to throw in there?
I think that's enough for one episode.
Yeah, and don't ask a snowman what to do for summer vacation. All right, see you guys.
It's a perfect.
No, here we go. I saw that reminds me. I saw a Instagram reel where it was like a bunch of like three guys sitting around. I don't know if it was an actual podcast or if they were doing the fake podcast thing, so it looked authoritative.
Oh, I hate that. Oh,
But they're like coming up with sayings that no one's ever heard before. And it was stuff like, don't ask a snowman what to do for summer vacation. They were really good. I bookmarked it. I'll send it to you guys. Where I'm like, wait, that surely someone has said that before. But
Nice.
anyway. All right, I'll take us out. You all, thank you for joining us, everybody. 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLEARN, where becoming a great illustrator starts. If you haven't joined SVSLEARN yet, what are you waiting for? It's a party over there. You get to come to these live podcasts and hang out in the chat, and you get
Draw
to
live with me and Anthony too.
Yes, you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff. Anyways, your hosts today are Anthony Wheeler, Lee White, and I'm Jake Parker. And I just want to shout out our SVS team for all the hard work that they do. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu. Team manager Preston Smith, keeper of the curriculum and the community Austin Shirtliff, show notes wrangler Lily Howell, chief operations officer Lisa Fott, and our illustrator Annalise Black. Now go draw something. Oh, that wasn't beatboxing. You want to hear beatboxing?
I do really want to hear beatboxing right now. I really do.
Wiki.
How come we don't do that more often? How come that's not the intro?
I don't know. It should be.
I've known you for we might be going on 15 years. I didn't know you could beatbox.
Well, you know, the thing is, everybody's beatbox sort of sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
All right.
But have you ever heard this?
Somebody's
beatbox?
jealous.
Have you ever heard this beatbox, Lee White? This is a beatbox with a cold.
That's my entire life over the past month. Cannot get rid of this stupid cough. I found out it's because of my old person high blood pressure medicine.
No, don't tell me that, because I have to go in the old person high blood pressure medicine. Hi,
Yeah,
Roxy. Hi, Joshua.
two of them have
Hi, Alice.
made me cough, and you cannot turn it off. I mean, it's like you just have to switch. It's fun.
There's a lot to explore there. There's a lot to
Can't just
explore.
drink more water.
Yeah, why don't you just have a
lunch
throat
already.
lozenge?
See, I am done eating lunch now.
Maybe it was
I'm a
that LaCroix that you were
professional.
drinking.
I call it the croaks.
What was for lunch?
I just had a avocado cheese sandwich
Okay.
and tomato.
So you're getting your healthy fats, a little bit of carbs, some protein in there.
It was really just what was downstairs in the kitchen. No other plan.
We're putting Alice, Joshua, and Roxy to sleep. I'm not sure who else is in the chat, but welcome in, everybody.
Welcome in, everybody. So we're going to record podcast today, obviously. And I was writing up a new intro. I don't know if this one's going to stick, but I figured we'd give it a shot today. I don't know if it's tight enough, if it's dialed in enough, but we're going to try it.
Can you send it?
I'll
Can you
text
send
it
it
to you too. How's that sound?
Okay.
But while I'm doing that, what were you talking about before we hit go on this?
Well, I think we've got a pretty big topic that we're going to talk about today. Probably the kind of topic that most people will really want to listen to.
Uh-huh.
But I wonder if we break that up a little bit, or maybe start with the topic of like talk about like a place where you really found like a lot of creative energy. And I think about like Lee going to Japan and like coming home and then instantly painting like 20 paintings. Or like every time I go to Disneyland, I sit in Fantasyland and I just want to draw like, old world style stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough meat on that bone though. Hey, Marta. Hi, Mabel.
Well, in terms of what would the broad topic be? Like what sort of space inspires you to draw and paint?
It's not necessarily that. It's just sort of a way to break the ice, to get into the show a little bit, to talk about places that we've really gotten creative inspiration from.
I tell you, I would love to say that it's a big place for me and like, some kind of big iconic thing, Eiffel Tower
right?
or something.
Yeah.
But for me, I've noticed that I tend to like the small little alleys, little things that are tucked away. Like I love kiosks and things like that. Just these small, like the doorways, obviously I've been painting a bunch of those. So it's weird because like I actually shy away from the big scenes that are, I don't want to say cliche, but just like, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me. Like a big sunset. You will never see me paint a sunset or, just some realistic trees or something. It's just super boring. I like spaces that people.
So if I go through your art book, I'm not going to see any sunsets in there?
You will see 0 sunsets in there.
I sent you guys the new script. You want to do a practice run on it?
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Okay, here we go. We're just going to practice a couple times. Well, actually, let me explain to the live guests here, live visitors here, what's going on. So I've been looking at a lot of the comments on the podcast and just kind of ingesting all of the feedback that we've been getting.
You mean the criticism?
It's been about a year since we've been doing multiple guests or multiple hosts, right? Like maybe we started in, is it 6 months or a year? When did we start doing it?
It's a year. Like I've been on the show for 3 going on 4 years now. Just every so often is the fill in, but like with the rotating with like Sam and then David and I, probably a year.
Yeah. So we want to refine and get better and do better. And one of the things I was thinking is we should have 2 hosts that never deviate. And then we just cycle through a 3rd host all the time, because instead of, the 3-point perspective grab bag or potluck or whatever it is, the host potluck, you just kind of get what you get. You don't know if it's going to be Lee, Sam, and Anthony or David.
Yeah, it could be a combo.
Yeah, right.
People hate that change too. As much as it's like not a big deal to us, like the listener, there's a lot of friction there sometimes.
So me and Lee talked about it. We're going to do, me and Lee are the never changing hosts. And then Anthony, Sam, David, Will Terry, any sort of guest we have coming in will be the 3rd host. And then let me ask you guys this, because I was talking to Sam about it. I threw this out at her, but I was thinking that the host, or whenever we have a guest on, they're actually not it's not an interview show. Like, so let's say we're going to have Peter DeSev, right? A famous illustrator and phenomenal guy, and maybe he has a book coming out or whatever, and he wants to go on a podcast to promote it. Instead of bringing him on as someone we interview, we bring him on as a 3rd co-host, and we do the topic we were going to do for that episode, but now he's bringing in his perspective on it, and maybe in the process we get some stuff that it's better than, oh, where'd you go to school and how did you end up in New York City, and
I don't know, man. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know, because like that interview with Peter DeSev was awesome because I didn't know half that stuff. You know what I mean? Like I don't want him answering like, oh, what do you think about
Peter
AI?
DeSev interview?
Oh, not Peter DeSev. Sorry, James Gurney.
Yeah. Well, that particular one I think was good because it was really much about like the history in accordance with that book, and so we could shift the conversation to be something that goes right along with that. So it could be like for James Gurney, it might be how do you or ways to rethink your education, because he that the whole gist of that interview was what he was doing in his 20s, pretty much, and how that affected him later in life. And so we could go about it that way. So if it's like if we were to do an interview with Peter Stev, you could go Google an interview with Peter Stev and get any kind of information you want about him. But I want to know what he thinks about particular topics or specific things. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
We had, I think the first episode that David was on, it was Lee, David, and I, and I had not, I don't know a lot about David. We've interacted for years, but I don't really know him. So like part of that show was really just peppering him with questions and background and stuff.
Yeah.
And then that sort of moved, I don't know if it was seamlessly, but like moved then into, David, what's your opinion on this topic? And that felt really organic and sort of easy. I think you're probably going to want flexibility though. I think you're going to want, like, if you get a guest on that either the publicist says that they want to do a deep dive, or if you guys just don't know them all that well, you're probably going to want to, have that flexibility, I guess.
Yeah.
True.
Anyway, that's what I'm thinking. Question from Mabel really quick. Is Sean Crystal going to be a regular? I'd love an office hours with Sean. No offense to Anthony, David, or Sam, who are also awesome.
I take all the offense.
Dude, I'm cool with bringing Sean on as like a rotating instructor here. I mean, he's doing Graphic Novel Pro with me. It'd be cool to have him in office hours and doing stuff, but that's a conversation we haven't had yet with either him or Lee or any of us. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Lee?
Yeah, bring him on. More the merrier. Cool.
All right. So this is a live episode. A fine offense intended only to Anthony. That's good. All right, let's practice our intro here. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, the reason I say this is the podcast instead of saying, hello, welcome to 3-Point Perspective is I think that's a relic from the days of radio where you're tuning in and you're like just scanning the dial and you're like, what am I listening to? And they come back from a commercial break and they're like, hey, this is 3-Point Perspective, because you have no idea because you just clicked on the dial. But tell me a podcast that you've accidentally clicked on and you had no idea what you were listening to as you started listening to it. It never happens.
No, it does happen, because like if you get in the car and you've got a playlist or something that will auto update or whatever, sometimes it'll start playing a podcast that I don't even know what it is until they say, hey, this is
a podcast that you've never subscribed to or anything. It's just randomly.
I've subscribed to them, but there's like maybe I've got 8 of them or something like that. So it's some science ones and some humor ones. And like, what's the one with, the guys from Arrested Development? Smartless. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it'll all of a sudden start on Smartless. I mean, I know those guys, so
yeah.
They do it. They do a cold open, and then they do the theme song, and then they get into the guest. Mm-hmm. I think the only thing that you're going to run in, you have 2 things you're going to run into. The purists. You're going to have to deal with the YouTube comments. Everyone's going to miss the hello everybody, because it's just so consistent. The other thing is, depending on sort of like pre-roll ads that you might not have control over. Some of those ads are so conversational sometimes that you might not be able to. Somebody might not be able to tell when the show is actually starting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So for the last, I'm going to say, since December, I've been subscribed to YouTube Premium.
Yeah, so I don't get any of that either.
I have not seen an ad on YouTube for almost 6 months now. You guys, will never. This is
it's the best $12 you could ever spend.
Yeah, I'm on year 3 of it right now. But you got to think about Spotify, Apple, people who are in the car.
Well, not only that, but like YouTube makes it so annoying that they increase the length of ad the longer you watch something.
Yeah.
So
the worst is I listen to tons of music on YouTube. Like I have a playlist. It's just the raddest music, right?
Okay.
The raddest. It's my music. It's whatever. Anyways, I love it. And you're in the groove and you're drawing, and then all of a sudden, it stops and it's like, call Roto Rooter, and it's like the worst thing ever, or AutoZone or something like that. I don't know. But and it literally like snaps me out of it. I have to hit skip, and then context shift. How do I get back into that groove again? And so I justified it in the beginning as like, this literally will save me an hour of context shifting in a day if I'm working constantly and listening constantly. And then the other thing that was like the worst thing ever was we watched the Olympics on YouTube over the summer, and you had to, there was so many stinking, no, it was, it wasn't the Olympics. We watched that on Peacock or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
There's still ads, even though we paid for Peacock. I don't understand how that works, but but we watched the Daily Dose of Internet. That's like our family chill activity after dinner. We all grab a little snack, a little treat, and watch the Daily Dose. And those things, the ad just ruined the whole experience. It's like, now we're hearing about, why we should vote for Trump or Kamala or whatever. That was back before the subscription. So anyways, if you want to subscribe to YouTube, use my link right here. You get
yeah, there it is. There it is.
Why are we talking about this? Anyway, I'm back to our main point. I think just saying, hey, welcome to 3 Point Perspective. This is the podcast about illustration. I just don't think that that's a big enough save to cut it out.
Okay. Maybe I was getting in my head, because I'm thinking if you are subscribed or an episode drops and you tap on it, or it's in your queue.
Yeah, but would you ever be upset if you logged onto something, say you came to my personal podcast and I said, hey, I'm Lee White, watercolor guy, and then I go into my lecture? Would you ever think, oh my God, I wish you didn't say that?
No, but I'm noticing podcasts that I listen to have just skipped all of that stuff. And it's just like, it pushes play and you're hearing like a highlight from the episode.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I can't wait to get to this.
Yeah,
and then they have the tightest little thing, like, hey, welcome to whatever it is. And let's get into it. So that's my thinking. It's, and plus I listen to them on 1.5 speed, because people talk. I can't listen to it on normal speed now, because everybody sounds like they're underwater and in slow motion. They're just like,
well, then why are we going to read this whole thing? Why isn't it literally just your part? And then you say, I'm here with Lee White and Anthony Wheeler, and let's dive into it. Like, just after your 2 sentences, why do we need that other stuff?
I don't know.
Let's try that short and sweet one with nothing else except for just your open, and then you introduce us.
Before you do that, just because I have an intrusive thought, one piece of feedback that we got on a podcast, one of the other live shows, is that we didn't take any questions from the actual audience who's here live, which I think is part of the incentive of like watching the show as we make it.
Yeah.
So we should, and we can skip the whole like location thing, but if there's any like really good questions that we've not talked about, we should try to mine what the chat is giving, except for Joshua's comments. I'm good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, wait, there is chat happening as we've been talking.
Yeah.
Kirsten says it wouldn't be 3PP without the intro. If the intro is super long, it's an issue, but yours has always been short and sweet. Maybe we're overthinking this.
I'm good with changing the will part, because like I'm more into business than publishing at the moment. And like Sam, like all of us, like I'm probably the biggest outlier, but like not all of us teach at universities. Either I'm going to teach on my stuff, or I'm going to teach over here. So I think simplifying that down is really good. I personally just feel like if you kept the hello everybody, and then we just go into this bit, we keep it under 45 seconds, boom, into the show. I think everyone's not going to give you too much grief.
All right. See,
that's just me.
What's cool about coming to these live shows is you also get to attend an SVS meeting.
That's true.
Right? Okay, here we go.